Abram blessed by Melchizedek. After his returns from his defeat of the Chaldemar, the king of who he were with him, the king of Sodom went out, met him in the valley of Siva, that is King's Valley. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and blessed him and said, Blessed be Abram of God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hands. And Abram gave him a tenth of everything. And the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the person, but take the goods for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up my hands to the Lord, God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, that I would not take a thread or a sandal strap or anything that is yours, lest you should say, I have made Abram rich. I will take nothing but what is the young men have eaten, and their share of men who went with me. Let Enor, Eshcol, and Mamre take their share. God's covenant with Abram, chapter 15. After these things the word of the Lord came to Abram in his vision. Fear not, Abram, I am your shield, your reward shall be very great. But Abram said, O Lord God, what will you give me? For I continue childless, and the heir of my house is Eleazar of Damascus. And Abram said, Behold, you have given me no offspring, and a member of my household will be my heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, This man shall not be your heir, your very own son shall be your heir. And he brought him outside and said, Look toward the heavens, and number the stars, if you are able to number them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. And he believed the Lord, and counted to him as righteousness. And he said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out from Ur of the Chaldeans to give to you the land to possess. But he said, O Lord God, how am I to know that I possess it? He said to him, Bring me a heifer 3 years old, a female goat 3 years old, a ram 3 years old, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he brought him all these, cut them in half, laid each half over against the other, but he did not cut the birds in half. And when the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. As the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell on Abram, and behold, dreadful and great darkness fell upon him. Then the Lord said to Abram, Know for certain that your offspring will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and will be servants there, and they will be afflicted for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they serve, and afterwards they shall come out with great possession. As for yourself, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried in a good old age, and they shall come back in here in the 4th generation. For the iniquities of the Amorites is not yet complete. When the sun had gone down, and it was dark, behold, the smoking firepot and the flaming torch passed between these pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your offspring I give this land, for the river of Egypt to the great river of the river Euphrates, the land of Kenites, Kenzerites, Kelmanites, the Hittites, Perizzites, Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Jebusites, and the Jebusites. Sarah and Hagar. Chapter 16. Now Sarah, Abram's wife, had bore him no children. He had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. And Sarah said to Abram, Behold, now the Lord has prevented me from bearing the children. Go into my servant, and may be well that I shall obtain children by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarah. So after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, Sarah, Abram's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her servant, and gave her to Abram, her husband, as a wife. And he went to Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, she looked with contempt on her mistress. And Sarah said to Abram, May the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my servant to you, embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me. But Abram said to Sarai, Behold, your servant is in your power. Do to her as you please. Then Sarai dealt harshly with her, and she fled from her. The angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, and the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you to come from, and where are you going? She said, I am fleeing from my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord said to her, Return to your mistress, and submit to her. The angel of the Lord also said to her, I will surely multiply your offspring so that they cannot be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Behold, you are pregnant, and shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has listened to your affliction. He shall be a wild donkey of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he shall dwell over all of his kinsmen. So she called the name of the Lord, who spoke to her, You are a God of seeing. For she said, Truly, here I have seen him which looks after me. Therefore the will call him Beer-Lahai, and between Kadesh and Beer. And Hagar bore him a son. Abram called the name of her son, and Hagar bore Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. Abraham and the covenant of circumcision. Chapter 17. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless, that I may make my covenant between me and you, and may multiply you greatly. Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, Behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be the father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be called Abraham, for I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful. I will make you into nations, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your offspring, and you throughout the generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your offspring after you. And I will give to you and to your offspring after you the land of your sojourning, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said to Abraham, As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your offspring after you throughout the generation. This is my covenant which you shall keep between you and me and the offsprings after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskin. And it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male throughout your generation, whether born in your house or brought with your money from any foreigner who is not of your offspring. Both he who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money shall surely be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh, an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin shall be cut off from the people. He has broken my covenant. Isaac's birth. And God said to Abraham, As for Sarah, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarah, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and moreover I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall become nations, kings of the people shall come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said to himself, shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abram said to God, oh, this Ishmael might live before you. God said, no, but Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful and multiply him greatly. He shall father 12 princesses, and I will make him into a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this time next year. When he had finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. Then Abraham took Ishmael, his son, and all those born in his house, and brought with him money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and he circumcised the flesh of their foreskin that very day. And God had said to him, Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of the foreskin, and Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That the very day Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised, and all the men of the house, those born in the house, and those brought with money for a foreigner, were circumcised with him. 18. And the Lord appeared to him by the oak of Mamre, and he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the earth, and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves. After that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly to the tent of Sarah, and said, quick, 3 seahs, and fine flour, knead it, and make cakes. And Abram ran to the herd, and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the young man, who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds of milk, and the calf that he had prepared, and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, she is in the tent. The Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife shall have a son. Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him, and now Abram and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of the woman had ceased to be with Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, after I am worn out, and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure? The Lord said to Abram, why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child, now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, no, but you did laugh. Then the men set out from there, and they looked down toward Sodom. And Abram went with them to set them on their way. The Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? For I have chosen him that he may command his children in his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has promised him. Then the Lord said, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grave, I will go down to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me. And if not, I will know. Abraham intercedes for Sodom. So the men turned from there and went toward Sodom. But Abraham still stood before the Lord. Then Abram drew near and said, Will you indeed sweep away the righteous and the wicked? Suppose there were 50 righteous within the city. Will you then sweep away the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it for you do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked fare. Be that from you shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just? And the Lord said, If I find a solemn 50 righteous in the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Abraham answered and said, Behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord, I who am but dust and ashes. Suppose 5 of the 50 righteous are lacking. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? And he said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. Again he spoke to him and said, Suppose 40 are found there. He answered, For the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, Oh, let not the Lord be angry. I will speak. Suppose 30 are found here. He answered, I will not do it. I find 30 there. He said, Behold, I undertaken to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 are found there. He answered, For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak again, but this one, suppose 10 are found there. He answered, For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. And the Lord went his way. When he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. God rescued Lot, chapter 19. The 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and bowed himself with his face to the earth, and said, My Lord, speak, turn aside to your servant's house, and spend the night, and wash your feet. Then you may arise early and go your way. They said, No, we will spend the night in the town square. But he pressed them strongly. So they turned aside to him, and entered his house. And he made them a feast, and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. But before they lay down, the men of the city of the men of Sodom, both young and old, all of the people of the last man, surrounded the house, and they called to Lot, Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may know them. Lot went out to the men at the entrance, shut the door after him, and said, I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Behold, I have 2 daughters, who have not known any man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please, only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof. But they said, Stand back. And they said, This fellow came to sojourn, and he has become the judge. Now we will deal who with you, then with them. Then they pressed hard again, and the man Lot, and drew near to break the door down. But the men reached out their hand and brought Lot into the house with them, and shut the door. And they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, both small and great, so they wore themselves out, groping for the door. Then the men said to Lot, Have you anyone else here, sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone you have in the city? Bring them out of this place, for we are about to destroy this place, because the outcry against his people have become great before the Lord. The Lord has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and said to his sons-in-law, who were to marry his daughters, Get up, get out of this place, for the Lord is about to destroy the city. But he seemed to his sons-in-law to be gesturing. As morning dawned, the angels urged Lot, saying, Up, take your wife, your 2 daughters, who are here, lest you be swept away in the punishment of the city. But he lingered. So the man seized him and his wife and his 2 daughters by the hand, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. And as they brought them out, one said, "Escape for your life. Do not look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the hills, lest you be swept away." And Lot said to them, "Oh, my Lord, behold, your servant has found favor in your sight. You have shown me great kindness in saving my life. But I cannot escape to the hills, lest the disaster overtake me and I die. Behold, the city is near enough to flee to. It is a little one. Let me escape there. It is not a little one, and my life will be saved." He said to him, "Behold, I grant you this favor, also that I will not overthrow the city for which you have spoken. Escape there quickly, for I can do nothing till you arrive there." Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. God destroys Sodom. The sun had risen on the earth when Lot came to Zoar, and the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the valley and all the inhabitants of the cities, what grew out of the ground. But Lot's wife behind him looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham went early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord, and he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the valley. And he looked, and behold, the smoke of the land went up like the smoke of a furnace. So it was that when God destroyed the cities and the valley, God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrown when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had lived. Lot and his daughters. Now Lot went up out of Zoar and lived in the hills with his two daughters, for he was afraid to live in Zoar. So he lived in a cave with his two daughters. And the firstborn said to the younger, "Our father is old. There is not a man on earth to come to us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve offsprings for our father." So they made their father drunk wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father. He did not know when she lay down, and when she arose. The next day the firstborn said to the younger, "Behold, I lay last night with my father. Let us make him drunk wine tonight also. Then you go and lie with him, that we may preserve offsprings from our father." So they made their father drink wine that night also. And that younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Thus the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab, and he is the father of the Moabites. And to this day the younger also bore a son and called his name Ben-Amman, and he is the father of the Amorites to this day. Abram and Abimelech. For the Abraham journeyed toward territory of the Negev, and lived toward Kadesh Elzar, and sojourned in Gur. And Abraham said to Sarah his wife, "She is my sister." Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night, and said to him, "Behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife." Now Abimelech had not approached her, so he said, "Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Did he not himself say to me, 'She is my sister'? And she herself said, 'He is my brother'? In the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hand I have done this." Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know that you have done this in the integrity of your heart, and it was I who kept you from sinning against me. Therefore I did not let you touch her. Now then, return to the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours. So Abimelech rose early in the morning, called all his servants, and told them all these things, and the men was very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, What have you done to us? And how have I sinned against you, that you have brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? You have done to me things that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said to Abram, What did you see, that you did these things? Abram said, I did it because I thought, There is no fear of God at all in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, through not the daughter of my mother. She became my wife. And when God calls me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, This is the kindness you must do me. At every place to which we come, say to me of me, He is my brother. Then Abimelech took sheep and oxen and male servants and female servants and gave them to Abraham, and returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before you. Dwell where it pleases you. To Sarah he said, Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. It is a sign of your innocence in the eyes of all who are with you, and before everyone you are vindicated. Then Abram prayed to the God, and God healed Abimelech, and also healed his wife and female slaves, so that they bore children. For the Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abram's wife. The birth of Isaac. The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son, who was born to him, whom Sarah had bore him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, and God had commanded him. Abram was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, Who would have said to Abram, and that Sarah would nurse children? Yet I have borne a son in his old age. And God protects Hagar and Ishmael. And the child grew and was weaned. And Abram made a great feast of the day that Isaac was weaned. But Sarah saw the son of Hagar in the Egyptian, whom he had bore to Abram, laughing. So she said to Abraham, Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of this slave woman shall not be heir with my son Isaac. And the thing was very displeasing to Abraham to account of his son. But God said to Abraham, Be not displeased because of the boy and because of your slave woman. Whoever Sarah says to you, do as she tells you, for through Isaac shall your offspring be named. And I will make a nation of the son of the slave woman, also because he is your offspring. So Abraham rose early in the morning, and took bread and a skin of water, and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulders along with the child, and sent her away. She departed and wandered